Sup, brose? I'm Leon, the Paperback Maniac. Happy October. It's our favorite time of the year once again. And it actually feels like October outside where I live here in Southern California, which is nice. It's not 90 degrees as it's been in the past. There's actually a chill in the air. I actually woke up this morning and went down to my local 7-Eleven down the street, got my first pumpkin spice latte of the season, came home and watched Sleepwalkers. For some reason, I was in the mood to do that, and something I highly recommend everyone does at least once this October. Grab yourself a pumpkin spice latte, or if you're an OG, an apple cider, and watch this movie because it's a good time. I do it every October, every Halloween season. Anyway, on to the review. Today's title, one that will be familiar to anyone who has read Paperbacks from Hell. We are taking a look at The Voice of the Clown by Brenda Brown Canary. This book was published by Avon in 1982. Yes, very elusive and sought after. If you haven't read Paperbacks from Hell, the reason that this book is so famous is, well, for two reasons. First, a quote from Grady Hendrix, the author of Paperbacks from Hell, saying that this was the only book that ever made his jaw drop. And the other reason is the astronomical price for the novel since the release of Paperbacks from Hell. After I finished this book last week, I went on Amazon and checked, and it's currently going for $119.97. Now, luckily, I owned a copy of this book before the release of Paperbacks from Hell. Otherwise, it would be very unlikely that I would be doing this review right now. I think I paid something like $5 or $6 for it. I had ordered it online. Interestingly, on the inside here, it lists the price of the book at $1.50 with a trade-in value of 75 cents. Those good old salad days when vintage paperback horror novels went for that kind of money. Remember when they were literally pennies? Yes. So first of all, let me get this out of the way. Is this book worth $120? Fuck no. Is it worth $1.75? Well, stay tuned and find out. I will begin, as usual, by reading the synopsis from the back cover. What makes little Laura kill? Sweet little Laura doesn't talk. She just smiles and shakes her golden curls. Her Nana loves her dearly, and her daddy adores her. But Laura's mother is terrified. She knows there's something very wrong about Laura. Something that whispers vile, disgusting obscenities at her when no one else can hear. Something that is slowly taking her husband and destroying her other children. Laura's mother must be crazy. Who would believe that such an innocent child could do such wicked, wicked things? Little Laura isn't afraid of getting caught, as long as she does whatever her clown doll tells her to do. The Voice of the Clown. And then on the bottom, it says, The Exorcist and the Bad Seed were just the beginning. Little Laura is a horror that will pierce your soul. Yes. So, sorry, I have a bookmark because there's a short passage I want to read. But this novel begins with a prologue, of course, in which a scorned and despondent woman of Native American descent named Molly Crow is standing on the edge of a cliff at night and cursing the name of the woman, Kate, which rhymes with hate, cursing Kate for stealing her childhood sweetheart TJ away from her. Kate and TJ had gone off to college together. Kate got knocked up, and so therefore TJ felt compelled to marry her, right? Because of course, what else is he going to do? Now, unbeknownst to TJ, Molly Crow, his childhood sweetheart, and really the woman that his true love, also is pregnant by TJ. And now, when she finds out that he's come back, married this Kate woman because of her pregnancy, she has to keep it all a secret and raise her child herself in shame. And of course, she is furious about this. She basically So standing on this cliff at the beginning, she's all decked out in this rainbow-colored ceremonial shawl, and she curses Kate, mutters an imprecation, and then takes a dive off the cliff, killing herself. Then we go to the main part of the story, and we are introduced to Kate's and TJ's 6-year-old daughter, Laura, whose point of view we are in the entire novel. The novel is written in a third-person limited POV, and we get this little Laura's perspective. She is a mute, and she carries around this clown doll with her that she's had since birth, everywhere she goes. And she does not like her mother, is evident right from the start. She is very much a daddy's girl, and she appears to be very, very precocious for her age. She notices things that other children her age certainly wouldn't, especially the toxic nature of his parents' relationship, and especially the fact that to her it seems that her father is the most wonderful man alive, and he is always yearning for her mother, who is just a callous bitch and does not give him the time of day. She's too wrapped up in her own life and her own, being, and she thinks that her mother does not deserve her father, and she's all about daddy. She wants to be with daddy all the time, and and she feels that her mother, along with pretty much everyone else other than her Nana, her grandmother, whom she loves dearly, is trying to keep them separated. And lately the mother has been pushing to enroll Laura into public school, and Laura, of course, does not want this. Because she usually just goes to work with her daddy, and of course this would cause her to be separated from her daddy. So she thinks that this is a tactic of her mother's to keep her and her father separated. And at first you think, okay, this is a little weird, but it very soon becomes evident that this is straight up Freudian, that this Laura really has this strange thing for her daddy. She eventually plans on marrying her daddy. She wants to get rid of her mother and pretty much everyone else, save for her nanny maybe, or Nana, and she wants to be with her father. The way she longingly, wistfully looks at him, while he's driving her around in his truck. Very sort of odd, right? Kind of a strange thing, and of course Laura does not talk. She never speaks. And at first you get the impression the reason is because of her observations, because she is so precocious, and she believes that, what's the point of speaking when no one says what they really believe anyone? She thinks that basically, all conversation is bullshit, and that's the short quote I wanted to read to you. Says, quote, "Words reminded Laura of the hollow tin soldiers that her brother Remming carried around in the battered shoebox. They looked heavy, like words sounded important, but they were light because they were empty inside." So you think, wow, this girl, for 6 years old, very interesting. And eventually her mother prevails upon her father and everyone else, and they do enroll Laura to public school. Her dad drives her there. And the first thing, Laura, when she looks into school, of course she's observing everything in microscopic detail. It just looks ugly and hideous to her. She's seeing all the cracks in the walls and the other kids. She has no interest in being around anyone other than her daddy. And she very quickly resolves that this will be her first and last day of public school. She will not be coming back here. So she basically, first of all, refuses to let go of her clown doll, of course, when the teacher asks for it. And she kind of, she obliges the teacher. She's like, okay, this is a new student, her first day ever of school. But soon Laura starts sort of insidiously turning the other kids against the teacher. And she starts to what does she do? She starts getting up and walking on the desks in defiance of the teacher, and kind of all the other kids start giggling and laughing and goading her on. And then soon, little Laura is hopping around the desks doing an Indian war dance, a little subtle thing she just throws in there. And eventually the teacher is like, "What the hell? This little girl's come in and made me lose all control of my class." And the teacher kind of loses it and runs toward Laura to try to stop this, and knocks over another kid who falls on the floor and kind of gets a bloody nose, and then Laura sees this and just dives into the floor and smears the blood all over her, thinking, oh, okay, when my daddy sees me covered in blood, he's never going to allow me to go back to public school. And this is exactly what happens. Her father quickly unenrolls her, much to Laura's mother's chagrin. And of course, Laura's mother is very, at this point already thinks something's wrong with her daughter. She says, no, she did this on purpose. She's being manipulative. Of course, her daddy is not buying it, saying that no, that's not the case. And Laura's mother actually is really trying to get pregnant with another baby at this point. And of course, Laura is not into that idea at all, and her clown doll tells her, yeah, this is just she says this is just like her ploy to like consolidate her hold on the family. If she gets pregnant again, she's gonna keep her hold on TJ, her husband, and the clown doll says she's done this before in the past. She tells Laura this, and so the mother is trying to get pregnant, and there is a scene where Laura and her dad are watching TV, and then her mom comes downstairs in this really sexy nightgown. Very uncharacteristic of her to be acting this way toward her dad, because, according to Laura, she's always very cold and distant. But she comes down in the sexy lingerie, kind of sits by her dad and starts like seducing him. And very quickly, Laura's dad puts Laura to bed. He says, "Okay, babe, it's time for bed." And Laura, of course, is mortified. She suspects something weird is going to happen, so she sneaks into her parents' bedroom and hides in the closet and watches them do some strange thing that she's not very sure what it is, but whatever it is, her 6-year-old mind thinks her daddy seems to be enjoying it a whole hell of a lot more than her mommy, who seems to just be tolerating it. But so they do that, and the first time, of course, it does not work. She doesn't get pregnant, and Laura's mother gets even icier and more reserved and distant. But then one day, eventually, she shows. It turns out that she is pregnant, and her belly soon starts growing big and grotesque. According to Laura, those are her perceptions. Or sorry, according to the little girl Laura. And then the mother starts to act happy again because she's pregnant, and she starts to be really hard on little Laura, like denying her treats if she doesn't talk, saying like, "Look, you need to start talking. This is ridiculous." And then one day, little Laura, when they're alone, she basically loses it and gets really upset and just blurts out, "You're a fat pig," to her mother. And her mother, I mean, despite being, having said that, is delighted. She's like, "Oh, thank God you can talk." And her first thoughts are actually, "Thank God you're not retarded," she thinks to herself. And then she's like, "Great." She's like, "Okay, you can go back to school." Little does she know that little Laura has no intention of talking to anyone except her mother in secret. She plans to use this against her. This is her clown, again, is telling her to do this. They decide that they're going to gaslight Laura's mother, and so they do that, and she will only talk to Laura's mother in secret and sort of in this way taunt her. And, of course, while this is happening, Laura continues to be extremely jealous, especially once the new baby is born. In fact, the first time that she sees the baby, she basically, what does she do? She grabs like a handful of mud and just smashes this mud ball in the baby's face, hoping it will kill her, and runs away. And from there on, she actually refers to the baby as the mud baby. And she's very jealous. All of this leads to a very ridiculous scene. The second most probably the interesting scene in this book, not the most famous, not the one that made Grady Hendrix's jaw drop, presumably, but there is a ridiculous scene involving the baby and Laura's mother suckling the baby, breastfeeding it. It's just so ridiculous. Comes out of left field. It actually is a nice breath of fresh air, though, because as I'm going to get to soon, this book has a little bit of repetition and pacing issues, but that was a pretty fun scene. But while all this is going on, you do happen to feel a little sorry almost for Laura's mother, even though we're getting it all from Laura's point of view. But Kate, although she's a bitch, you do feel bad because, I mean, really, like, Laura is, like, just totally, like fucking her world up in a very subtle sense. It's very, very slow and insidious. But, you know, she definitely making her look like bad and crazy and like she's losing control. So you do kind of feel bad for her. But, yeah, basically, Little Laura's campaign, the subtle campaign against her mother and one of her brother, the one that's clearly Laura's or Kate's child, and this quote mud baby continues. She keeps taunting her mother in private, and you know, I have to admit, all of this is happening at the speed of molasses. Very, very slow. Very, very slow going. I mean, the pace of this book almost feels static at times. You know, you just kind of, you're reading it for like the first like couple hundred pages, just waiting for stuff to happen. And every now and then you get like a little something, but it's very, very slow. That is until about 200 pages into the book, where we do get the infamous scene that most people think of when they think of this book. I'm not going to ruin it, but I will just say that it really comes out of nowhere. It seems almost out of place. It does involve gore. A true what the fuck moment, kind of akin to probably the most memorable scene of Thomas Harris's great novel Hannibal, the scene that most people probably think of who have read the book or seen the movie. But just, yeah, almost jarring how out of place it is, because, you know, it's like you've gotten up to this point, this kind of more like psychological family melodrama, and then you're dropped this like horrific, gooey and taboo-y scene that seems more out of like a Zebra paperback, honestly, than an Avon one. But you know, it definitely woke me up, and it almost, I thought it might like raise my overall rating of this book, because it was like, I'll admit, it was like at a low 2 for me. I don't like to think of numbers, but I wasn't like, it was like merely okay. Ultimately, I don't think that single scene or the other earlier scene like saved the book necessarily, but definitely appreciated, because without that, this book would totally like have no reason to be remembered or talked about at all. But it does manage after that point to maintain a little bit of momentum, because we do get a fairly exciting climax. And we also learn finally, like what the quote unquote voice of this clown is. It will be no surprise to anyone who read the prologue, but the climax was pretty exciting. So that's good. However, you know, it then loses that momentum very quickly in the falling action and gets protracted again and just kind of drags on till the end. So really kind of poor pacing, I would say, is one of the biggest faults of this book. But, you know, on the plus side, I will say that it is fairly well written. I do like the author's choice of limiting the point of view to Laura's the entire time. I thought that was good. And, you know, the writing's decent. There's a fair amount of alliteration, especially early on in the book. It is funny, some of the ridiculous things that Laura says to her mother in private to kind of gaslight her and make her, you know, and no one's believing that this is happening. Like, she says some just like off the wall stuff. Like, at one point, after the new baby has recently been born, she tells her mother, quote, "The baby has sucked your tits all out of shape. They're hanging lower every day." So that it's kind of funny. Yeah, as I mentioned, a lot of melodrama in this book, and I usually love melodrama, but for some reason in this one it was a little off-putting. It was like it's too shrill. Like, the characters are always just like shouting at each other. There's a lot of just like enmity and rancor, and it was unpleasant. It wasn't like the fun kind of melodrama. I mean, if this had ever been a movie, it would be a fucking downer. It would not be like a fun, you know, like time. But yeah, a lot of screaming in this book, which kind of put me off, kind of wears you down. As I said, the book is very repetitive. It does not propel the way you would like one of these, you know, horror books. When you're reading a horror novel, you kind of want more things to actually happen. At least I do. So, yeah, it was really at a certain point, I was just not even compelled to pick it up. That's why it took me so long to finish this book, because it's just like I wasn't like eager to get to it. Like when I'm reading a good book, I'm thinking about it when I'm at work, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go back and pick it up and read it. That did not happen here. Um, you know, it is interesting at a certain point, like when you're reading the book and you're wondering like where it's going to go. It's interesting thinking, okay, like what's Laura's plan? I mean, it's really the doll's plan, or what's this clown doll, like what's it have planned to happen like through Laura? And so there is a little bit of mystery there. But just so slow going. It takes way too long to get there, and this book has one of the greatest cardinal sins for me. One of the things I hate, which is inordinately long chapters, like ridiculous. In fact, from the midway point of the book, like the last, I don't know, 150 pages, it's one chapter. I mean, what the fuck is up with that? Like, ridiculous. And that's another reason. And when you have long chapters like that in which such little is happening, it was really just wearying. And like by the end, I was like just happy to be done with it, honestly. So, not the most glowing review. Anyone who has been thinking about this book ever since they read Paperbacks from Hell and wishing you could get a copy, I mean, if you lucked out and found a copy in a store, definitely pick it up for collector's purposes. As I said, or read it. It's got a couple of redeeming qualities, but please do not pay crazy money for this book. It is, definitely not worth it, and ridiculously overhyped in my opinion. But so The Voice of the Clown, not the most fun book to kick off October, but I think the rest of the books I'm going to read this month, I am purposefully choosing to read books, fun books, enjoyable, entertaining books, books like authors that I can rely on, who I've enjoyed in the past. So hopefully the next, the remaining books I review this month will be more fun and more feeling of the season and that fun spooky spirit of the season. So anyway, that is the review. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you are having a great start to your October. Stay tuned soon for more book reviews. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Peace out.